and our Christian leaders and other people who are in various ministry and in various even professions with us this morning. And we pray, oh God, that you will help every one of us as we submit ourselves to you. We just know that you are able to help us in our minds and in our hearts to have a, a real better understanding of this issue about pornography. And oh God, I also pray that for some of us who may be struggling with this issue also, that you will enable us with the information that we will receive today from Joshua, that you will help us. And also, Lord, I pray that you will equip us to help people who have struggles and issues with pornography. Father, we commit our speaker to you. We thank you so much for this dear brother, for his ministry, and also that he has so kindly agreed to take time today to minister to us. We pray, Lord, that you will use him. You will just give him wisdom and give him sensitivity, and he will know how to help us. So we commit him to you. We commit each one of us to you. We do so in the wonderful name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. Okay, Joshua, thank you so much for taking time to be with us this morning. So now the time is yours.
Right. Thank you so much, Pastor Thomas. And greetings, one and all. Just really, the word is blown away, to see so many of you here I think many of you, this is your off day, and to join us in this session. My relationship with Pastor Thomas is basically accidental, in the sense that we were together in a fathering group here in Singapore, obviously over Zoom. That has started the fathering group that started this year. And we were also accidentally put together in the same group. And so last in February, I was sharing on this same topic, and that's where we got connected. And just want to thank Pastor Thomas and all of you, for just coming in today to listen and to basically connect together. So we do have a bit of time together, and obviously I'm not going to be speaking the whole time, but I really hope that you will stay with me and I feel that this is kind of important so that we will be able to just interact in a smaller everybody to feedback in the main session. And so what I've done is that I've created basically this Mentimeter page, where as you are discussing in a group, those who are probably more familiar with this can be a scribe, can be someone to just record down, the thoughts, the discussion in the group, to just have some breakout session. That we some of the things that has been talked about, and be able to feedback, to this Mentimeter page, so that after this, I'll be able to pass this on to Pastor Torchman. So that's the breakout room that we're going to have along the way. And of course, the other thing that I wanted to also do, I again, don't claim to be the expert of the topic, but I just wanted to help us, process some of the questions we may have that maybe I have not thought through, or we have not thought through in the past. So if you have any questions relating to the topic, so if you can just go there. I know because this is a rather big group, Initially, when I first started, I thought it was just going to be like a small pastors fellowship of 20, 30 people where we can just, turn on our camera and talk. But obviously, this is a much needed topic, and that's why the presence of so many of you. So if I can just get you to whatever questions you have along the way, and you feel that you just needed to ask, but cannot, do so because of the big group, can you just go to Slido? So it's just basically www, just go to the webpage, slido.com. And then, of course, type in the code, or you can scan it actually if you have a secondary device, your phone or something. Just scan that and it'll bring you straight to this Slido page where you can just type in your questions as we go along. And I hope that that will help. I'm not sure whether I can actually address all the questions, but I hope that along the way, as during our break or the intermissions, as I look at the question, I'll be able to address it if I have not done so already during the session. Okay, so this is a Q&A. You can just continually type in your questions, or even, so the great thing about Slido is that maybe you don't have a question to ask, but someone else asked on your behalf and you really like that question, and you can vote for it, and it basically just goes up the list, and that's visible for me, as I look at it, and I'll try to address it when and if I can. All right, so this is the Q&A. Then of course, I thought I wanted to just get to know you guys a little bit. And so again, with a secondary device, or you can just toggle over your computer, right, to a browser, and help me start off with this. Okay, so I just wanted to get to know you a little bit. So if you can just go over to Mentimeter, or you can scan the QR code that is before you in the slide, and basically introduce yourself in the sense of, I know I don't want to put you all in boxes or categories, but just for the sake of understanding who is represented here today. Okay, if you can just go ahead to Mentimeter and help me with this. Okay, basically I just kind of categorize it in these 4 groups as it is. Right, it's from pastors to individual to church leaders and educators, as well as parents. Okay, so I know you are saying that, Josh, I'm more than just a pastor because I'm a parent, or I'm more than just an educator because I'm also a parent, or I'm an individual as a parent. But just basically, yeah, whichever you feel you are representing this morning. I only given you one choice to choose. So whoever you feel that you are representing today, just go ahead and help me with that. And just kind of going to show you who we have here today. Okay. All right. So, yep, I guess all church leaders is actually the biggest group here, church leaders, pastors, followed by this number of individuals as well, and parents, educators. All right. I'll just give you some more time. Anybody else? Because we only have about 29 who has responded. I'll just give you a little bit more time to. Okay, it's coming in. All right, just in case you missed the earlier announcement, so just head over to Mentimeter and type in the code 41, okay, menti.com, yeah, 41863649. Just wanting to understand the group dynamics today. I guess that it won't change much in terms of my content, but at least it will help me to just be a little bit guided and steer towards the majority of you that I'm speaking to today. Okay, all right, just give you a few more moments. All right. menti.com, and then after that you type in the code 41863649. Okay. Okay, I'm just giving you a few more moments right now. Okay, so church leaders, whether you are cell leader or a lay leader, so that will make up the majority of the people here. Pastors also as well, or individual now making up the bigger group. Okay. Okay. All right. So anyway, thank you so much. I guess you can still input this, and I'll be able to see that along the way. Yeah. So thank you so much for just helping me with this. I thought this would be helpful in terms of understanding the group dynamics here. Well, I think there is because of the announcement that went out. So there's quite a number of you who have come here as individuals, not representing any group or church leadership, and that's okay. I think this today's content really is for all of us. And yeah, so before I go, I just wanted to again, I think Pastor Thomas has graciously, introduced me, and I've actually been with Focus on the Family for the longest time now. And we were just talking, we were having a guys, we call it a brothers lunch, where the small the dwindling numbers of of guys in the ministry that I am in Singapore, Focus Singapore. And so because a lot of guys are leaving, and so that number is getting smaller, and we were just just reminiscing, the good old days when we had more guys, and and we were just talking, and they were asking who's the oldest here, in terms of being in the ministry of Focus on the Family. And I was picked up as being the longest, and I'm actually this is my 18th year of serving at Focus on the Family. Obviously, my transition has been to many different locations, starting out with, of course, the main office in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. Then, of course, then after that, I moved back to my hometown in Malacca, and still continuing the ministry of Focus on the Family. Then I moved a little bit further down south now to Singapore, because my wife is Singaporean, and we decided to just come back, for family reasons and the children's education. And so that's where I am right now, serving with Focus on the Family Singapore. And of course, just got just a great opportunity as well to continue to be connected, under the regional Asia office, to be connected, with Focus Malaysia and the region as well. And so since this is hosted in Malaysia, I'd just like to get Benny, the Executive Director of Focus on the Family, to just say a few words, just to say hello since he's here. And before that, I also want to just, before Benny come and say a few words, I also want to acknowledge the other brother that I have. Well, I always call him my TK, my taiko, because we have been in ministry for so long that even though he's my boss, but we share this really brotherhood together, as it is, together with Benny, and that's Wimin. There's so many of you, so I don't know where Wimin, are you there? You can just wave so that they can see.
Yes, I'm here. Thanks, Josh.
All right, okay, so that's Wimin. Yeah. So Wimin is the Executive Director, or rather the Regional Director for Focus on the Family Asia, which I also serve under. And next in line is Benny. Benny is also another good brother and friend who represents Focus on the Family, the Executive Director of Focus on the Family Malaysia. So Benny, yeah, go ahead.
Thanks, Josh. And hi, everyone. Good morning. It's a joy to be among friends and pastors this morning. I think we all really look forward to meeting face to face soon. But thanks, Josh, for giving me my 30 seconds. But really, on behalf of the board and staff of Focus on the Family, we really want to thank all of you for your continued support and prayers for Focus on the Family Malaysia. Truly, without your support, we would be unable to do what we do. I think we also want to continue to invite each one of you to contact us if we can assist and support you as you support families, marriages, youth in your own congregations, we also have counseling services and such. So please just reach out to us. I think I'll put our website in the chat box just in case if you want to refer to that. But nevertheless, I think I just trust this morning will be really a blessed time of learning and hearing from the Lord together. So thanks again, Josh. And oh, by the way, my apologies. I have a staff meeting at about 10 a.m. So I just ask your apologies, may have to leave around that time. Well, back to you, Josh. Yeah, and thanks, pastors.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Benny. Yeah, so that's Benny. Just for you all to just put a face to the leadership of the organization. Yes, as Benny said, get in touch with Focus Malaysia if you have any needs as well. And that's really our mission. And I think that's what I resonate with a great deal as well. Just with the vision and mission of Focus on the Family to really nurture, support, and protect family. And I think one of the greatest attack of upon the family these days, besides, again, the rising acceptance of, the redefinition of marriage, through to LGBT and all that, there's so many other issues that is confronting the family today. And one of the greatest, I would say, in this time, besides, the many that we know of, is really the issue of pornography. And so today, as we begin the session on talking about pornography, right, I really come, and talk about this issue, right, with much fear and trepidation, right, simply because it is not something that I take lightly. And I think one of the earliest memory I had in terms of the first time I was exposed to pornography, right, in a way that has a lasting impact, was basically during my young adult years. And I can tell you that it was basically, I normally liken it to the perfect storm, simply because this was the first time I'm actually leaving home, right? Being independent, just right out of high school. Then, I left home and started kind of like a new life, an independent life. And of course, because right after that independence of being able to leave home and make a lot of decisions on my own, living an independent life, I was also in a work environment, kind of like a pioneering environment, because I basically was trained and sent to Kuala Lumpur, to KL, to the Klang Valley, to basically start a new office. So it was a pioneering work. And when I say pioneering, it sounds very, very mission-minded and things like that. But actually, it's just pioneering means, you go there, you start a branch office, and from literally, getting the rental of the place, to buying furnitures, to etc., all the things. I mean, starting from scratch, literally. And so that was how I started, at a very young age of about 19 years old. And I started this branch office. And my first, I would say, 6 to 8 months of that work, right, was basically on my own as well. That means I go to work 9 to 5, 9 to 6, right? I'm actually on my own because I need to get this office ready and started. And of course, the other thing that was really feeding into my isolation is that because the company actually provided a home for me, and I was alone in that home as well. So this combination of leaving home for the very first time, of the independence, of literally missing, my family so much, right? That I remembered, a few months into my so-called isolation, all right, I was looking at the pile of laundry that I have not done, for the entire week. A pile of laundry that there's normally magically appears on my bed, all clean and all during my time with my family, but now it's all piling up. And I literally was shedding tears because I miss, not because nobody was doing my laundry, but simply because I was missing home so much. And so with this intense isolation, just imagine with me for a moment, right? I start work at home, before going out of home, I'm alone. Then when I go to the office for 9 to 6, 9 to 6 o'clock, I'm alone. Then, I'm alone because, my family is no longer with me. And so this intense isolation, and of course with the independence, and the first exposure to pornography, it basically, really had an impact on me. And I was a young adult, by the way. I wasn't a teenager, I wasn't a child, I was already an adult. And I can still feel the impact of it, up to today. So I want to tell you, imagine these days, right, when the exposure to pornography of the age, in terms of the age bracket, is getting younger and younger and younger, and the impact is much deeper and much more lifelong, like, in that sense, And so, of course, this is I want to share with you the 4 Ps. This is the personal struggle, the exposure, and it's never really pornography, as I've learned, over these past few years, right, of the intensity of talking about the issue, pornography is never the main problem. Okay, so you probably have heard this before, said many times. Pornography is just basically the medication, the medicine towards a deeper issue, a deeper struggle, a deeper problem. So as I look back, right, I realized that at that point of time when I first was exposed to pornography, my issue wasn't pornography per se, but it was because of that intense isolation, okay, that fueled basically, after I was exposed to pornography. And so it is in that sense, right, I think we must always look at pornography, right, as a much bigger problem, rather than just, okay, let's don't stop watching, let's, encourage people to just stay away, stay clear, etc., etc. It's actually a much deeper. Pornography is just the medicine, the symptom towards a deeper issue, a deeper struggle, a deeper relational, personal, psychological issue that a person is struggling with. And because of the private nature, in this day and age, right, I don't know whether, those of you who are probably a little bit more technical, technological, more savvy, right, you realize that all the browsers that you have right now, from Safari to Chrome to Fox, whatever, like, all the browsers that you can think of that you are using to search for things, all of it actually have a function called incognito, meaning that you can actually use that function. And basically what happens is that everything will basically, that means what is assumed is that whatever you get onto, you will not be able to track. That means there will be no browser history when you are under the incognito function, the private setting function. All right. And obviously I can understand the reason for this because, because of the scam and, just wanting to protect your personal details and everything, so that, the browser doesn't record, private information through the, to saving cookies. Okay. I know some of you may not understand all this phrase, but it's okay. Just remember that right now it has made it easier. Simply because, okay, so obviously for security reason, but he has actually made it much easier for people to actually go on the internet without anybody knowing, your private history. They won't be able to view what you've been viewing, etc. But that's just basically the assumption, lah. But what you don't know is that, the company are still recording what you get on. But they just, they just make it private, where, the average Joe will not be able to know what you get on because it doesn't record your browser history. And because of this, right, is making the problem even more private. Is making the problem even more private and intense struggle, personal struggle. And you know what? Pornography gets its power from its anonymity. Okay, and that's where the power comes. The power comes, right, when it's telling the people that are struggling with pornography that you are the only ones struggling with this problem. Okay, and if you ever surface this problem, okay, you'll be frowned upon. You might even lose your job. Okay, and so much of us as ministers, right? Our job is tied towards your reputation. Okay, and if anybody finds out, of this personal struggle that you have, okay, of this issue that you have, that's basically what most average people feel. And that's why pornography goes deeper and deeper and deeper, because it becomes more and more private. People try to hide it, and etc. And that's why it's really important for us to talk about pornography, I don't know whether we talk about this, in a church setting or, in our conversation with other leaders, but it is something that is important to talk about because we need to bring this to light and bring this to surface. And just like any other issue, when we bring this issue to the surface, right, the power of pornography loses its luster, and it will basically, obviously, requiring a little bit more intensity in terms of help and what we put in place, the safeguards we put in place to make sure that people don't go back to it again. Okay, and so this is basically it. And just wanting to hear from you again. Again, going back to the mentee, right, to help me with this. Okay, just to get a general feel. Okay, what would be your concerns? Okay. All right, so for you guys right now, right, as individuals, church leaders, pastors, educators, okay, what would be your concerns, okay, when it comes to the issue of pornography, okay? So you can help me with this right now. We just wanted to just have an overview, right? So if you can go to Mentimeter, all right, and type in what would be your concerns, okay, just to have an overview. What will be your concerns when it comes to the issue of pornography? And let's have a little bit of a discussion with this, okay? Okay, just let me know if you have an issue getting onto the page, okay? So, all right, the words are coming in. So this is basically a word cloud. And as you can see, right, what will happen is that the bigger the word is, that means more people are choosing it. So I can see that, yeah, addiction is basically one of our biggest concern, and rightfully so. And we will be talking quite a bit on the issue of addiction. Okay, addiction, addictive, okay, the same. Yep. The next word that is quite related is basically the word guilt and shame. Yeah. And I saw mental health as well. Yeah, it affects relationship for sure. There's a destructive nature to it. Yeah, marriage intimacy, yes. That's basically something that actually confronts us, when it comes to the issue of pornography. There's definitely a psychological aspect to it. Okay. Confused with reality, I saw that. Yeah. So true, right? I mean, it comes to a point where you just can't differentiate, between what is real and what is acting, as women view as an object. Yeah. The whole objectification, okay, of the issue, okay. Emptiness, yes. What it brings, I mean, people go into porn for the reasons of wanting to find some form of fulfillment, right? But that's what it promises, okay? But what you actually get in the end is basically, a further sense of emptiness as well. Okay, some of you are typing in the chat box as well. Yep, I see that. Okay, there's a shame and guilt, stronghold. Okay, that's attached to it. Yep. Okay, just give you a few more moments to do this. Okay, so as you can see, right, one of the biggest words that I can see here is the whole issue of addiction. And yeah, addiction basically is not something that we should take lightly. And it is not something that I think we are trained in, to actually assist people, because it's actually much more than just, what I'm trying to say is that it's a long-term intervention when a person has been diagnosed with addiction. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the difference between pornography addiction as compared to other addiction, right? And that's why it's even harder to basically resolve, as opposed to, I mean, not that other addiction is not serious, but there is a very big difference between pornography addiction to, let's say, addiction to drugs or to alcohol and etc. Yeah, I will point to that in the session afterwards. Okay. All right. So thank you again for sharing your concern, and you can keep that coming. And just basically, again, right, you can see, lifestyle is also an issue, right? We talk about addiction and lifestyle. Lifestyle, basically, now we are talking about how the addiction, right, actually is affecting a person's behavior already, okay? So when it becomes a lifestyle, right, so lifestyle is a big word here, and how that behavior, affects an individual's faith, affects an individual relationship with other people. And obviously, it's something that's going to basically perpetuate, the objectification, of not just women, okay, but men as well, as a whole. Because pornography, as you will find out later, is not just a man's issue these days. All right. Okay, thank you so much. And I'm just going to show you a quick video right now. And before we move on with the session. And let me know if you can hear, if you can't hear the sound, you just signal to me. Now I'll try to restart it again. Okay, so let's watch this video before we move on. Okay, sound okay? All right. All right, and I think one of the most interesting things, again, as I probably in the introduction that's been shared, right? I've actually been teaching, talking about the whole issue of sexuality, especially with young people for this these many years. We focus on the family. And one of the shift that I've seen, right, when it comes to pornography as a whole, the shift, obviously, I've been talking about this, 2 decades ago. The problem of pornography has already been, an issue 2 decades ago. But the shift and the change really is, right, is the more understanding now we have when it comes to how pornography is actually affecting the mind, the brain, right? And Josh McDowell, who is right now a very big advocate of the issue of pornography these days, and we're talking about it, especially in the church setting, right? Josh McDowell, many of you may have known him to be an evangelist, during his heydays, with basically Campus Crusade, and he was huge. People synonymous, right, with being an evangelist. But in his twilight, he's probably in his coming to his 80s now, and in his last leg of ministry, right, he's basically dedicating to fighting the issue of pornography. And he came to Singapore just prior to COVID lockdown, right, and basically launched what he called the Set Free Summit, right, basically a gathering of really church leaders coming to talk about the issue of pornography and how it's affecting the church. And basically what he said is that before we can look at pornography, right, we need to know pornography first and foremost is a mind problem. Okay, it's a problem with the mind and the brain before it is a morality problem. Okay, so many of us are actually very good at dealing with the morality side of it, and sometimes to great extreme that actually cause a lot of guilt and shame, right, that it actually drives the issue further deeper as well. I mean, obviously we talk a great deal about the morality part component of pornography, but Josh McDowell is saying, right, that unless we deal with the mind problem first, right, the whole we still need to teach the moral side of pornography, for sure. But before we can do that, right, we need to deal with the mind problem. We need to deal with how it's affecting the psychological and the mental aspect of an individual. Okay, so that's what has changed. Not because it didn't affect the mind 20 years ago. It's just that now with technology, right, people are able to study the neurological effect of what porn does to the brain, and so therefore there's more studies that are coming out now. And even greater still, I think, in this day and age, is that we used to have this battle 20 years ago. I think we have this battle where it's us against them, meaning that when we talk about the issue of pornography, right, it always feels like the church is against the world in a sense, because the world says, we want the freedom of speech, so please don't censor us, so therefore pornography should be allowed, etc., etc. Obviously in the West, not in our Asian country. And so because of that, the production of pornography, continue to increase simply because, people say that you cannot stop us from our freedom of speech. Okay, so there's always the church against the world in that sense. But I can tell you, right, for example, Fight the New Drug, which is the website that you see right now on this. Fight the New Drugs, right, is actually not a Christian website. It's basically a peer review website, right? They actually are gathering on a daily, even to a daily basis, with articles, with research, etc., right, to basically talk about how we need to fight the new drug. And pornography, rightfully, all of you mentioned, right, the greatest concern is addiction. It is really likened to the new drug. And what's different is that this new drug, right, has a more potent hold and power than normal drug per se. And so basically that's what has changed. Okay, basically there's more study on the brain, and even people on the other side, it used to seem, are also agreeing with people on this side, which is the Christian community, that this is a big problem. Okay, so this is the new thing 2 decades later. Then, of course, the other thing that I mentioned earlier is that it's no longer just a guy's struggle, because for every, again, I'm going to go into the stats later, but just to give you a highlight, for every 3 persons that are struggling with pornography, right, one of them right now is a woman. So it's no longer just a guy's problem, but it's also again, we have, and the problem with women struggling with pornography, right, is even more, I would say, the struggle is even more, because the problem with pornography is never assumed to be a women's problem. And so therefore, when a girl, a woman who is struggling with pornography, right, will feel even more ostracized, feel that there's really something wrong with them, simply because there are many resources these days for guys struggling with pornography, for men struggling with pornography. So whenever we talk about the issue of pornography, right, it's always under the umbrella of a men's ministry. But in the women's ministry, there's no talk on, okay, what about women who struggle with pornography, right? And so therefore, the women who are actually struggling with pornography, the 1 in every 3 person, right, will feel that there's really something so wrong with them, that they're actually struggling with such an issue that only guys are struggling with. And so that's really the other thing, the issue that has come to light in recent years, right? There's no longer just a guy's struggle. So talking about the issue, this is where we want to go into, and I definitely will. This whole first part of talking about the issue really is helping us to see things in perspective. Obviously, I'm going to use statistics and research that some of them are global, some of them are actually in Singapore. In Singapore, we have done quite an extensive research on this, especially in the Christian community. All right, and I'm going to share that with you. And so obviously some of it is Malaysia, but it's all over the place. And I just wanted to share with you all these things that I've come across. And I think we just have to look at it in its perspective. I know some of us like, okay, what about Malaysia? What about Mongolia? You know, is it the same and things like that? It's very hard for me to just give a blanket statement that says, okay, what is happening in the globe, in the American research, it is the same as it is in Malaysia. But I also want to say that when it comes to nowadays, looking at a global stat, looking at a closer stat within the region, like in Singapore or in Malaysia, there is certain thing that we can take to note, simply because I think because we live in such a global world these days, right? And so connected. It's not just global, but it's connected. And the thing that the fuel that pushes people into pornography, for example, is probably would be the same, across the board, simply because the medium and the method of getting onto pornography is the same, right? So again, take it with a pinch of salt in that sense, as I share some of these stats with you, and don't worry about having to take it all down, right? Simply because I think there's just a lot to digest. And I will be giving you my my notes, at the end of the session, and so you don't have to feel like you might feel overwhelmed, but it's okay because you'll probably have some time to digest after this. Yeah, and I want to start off by just putting things in perspective by going back to the Word of God, right? And in 2 Timothy chapter 3 verse 1 to 5 it says, but we need to realize this, okay? In the last days, difficult times will come, and rightfully so. That's what we are experiencing right now. With the pandemic, being able to meet like this, or rather having to meet like this. Let me rephrase, and also become, a blessing in itself. Who had thought that we can be connected. Even right to my dear brothers and sisters in Mongolia, being able to be connected as well. And so. But these are definitely no doubt difficult days, And it says, for men will be lovers of self and lovers of money, boastful, arrogant, revilers, disobedient to parents, ungrateful and holy. It goes on with the list, right? About, no self-control, hatred for good, treacherous, reckless. And it says, lovers of pleasures rather than lovers of God, and holding to a form of godliness, although they have denied its power, avoid such men as this. Okay, so the whole point is that we will be given into all these things that was mentioned, lover of self, lovers of money, and all that stuff, right? And I think one of the key things we need to realize, again, when dealing with the issue of pornography, right, is that we have given over to our love to the love of pleasures of this world, and the verse starts off by saying, it actually starts with the self, that we are so consumed with ourselves, right, that we no longer, or rather the pleasures that we derive from God and God alone, is no longer appealing. Okay, so therefore we would give ourselves over to the pleasures of the world, which is, even though in our mind we know it's temporary, okay, but at least I'm experiencing it right now. Whereas the pleasures of God, is normally long term. it requires, the efforts and just being, investing and putting our efforts in, for the long term, to be able to experience the fullness of God's, joy and pleasure as it is. And I think this is the reality of where we are at today, right? And of course, this is the verse that I want to start us off with as we look at the issue that's confronting us today, right? Then of course, I want to bring to light the first thing. Okay, now again, issue with pornography, right, is that again, why this is the impact is so great, right, these days and this day and age, is because of the availability of pornography. Okay, so you just look at this. I mean, you don't have to do this as an exercise, because you don't need to do this. I've already done it for you. Okay, so just type in the word sex, right, in Google, right. So again, you look at this, right. This is in November of 2015, right? My math's not so good. Right? I always need to count how many decimal point. Okay, there is close to 3 billion searches just on the word sex alone. That's 3 with a capital B. Okay, all right, 3 billion searches just on the word sex. Okay, so again, right, we're talking about just the availability of the stuff that is available, and this, when it comes to this, right, you can see, right, because of its availability, it basically propagates, even more stuff like this. Okay, now that's 2015. The latest one I have for you is quite quite recent, February of 2021. Okay, so that has increased by 1 with a capital B. Now it's at 4. Obviously, it's going to increase day by day. And so this is the reality. Why not sex per se, pornography is so pervasive and pervasive, okay, and perversive, in its nature today, simply because of the availability of it. All right. I was just sharing with someone recently that I remember the 2 decades ago, where you need to kind of hunt for pornography because it's not so easily available. And so people, I think the closest memory that I have, of where pornography used to reside, right, is those people, especially in Malaysia, Singapore, there's a tighter rule on this. In Malaysia, where people sell their VCDs, right, and in Pasar Malam, I don't know whether you remember those days. Okay, so and it's so available, right? I mean, it's every time you go and buy your apples and pears, you see a guy with his truck, and behind his truck is just full of VCDs and going for very cheap, $5, $10, and of course the pornography one, will be hidden in a box kind of thing, and you have to go over to his truck, to look at it. And so that was how it was available back then. Okay, but I was reading the article about 5-7 years ago. Those guys, right, they used to sell VCDs illegally, right, whether in Pasar Malam or in the mall, right, they started to shut down, and so the news outlet was just basically interviewing some of them and asking them, why is it that you guys are not doing business? Isn't this a lucrative business? I mean, even though it's just $5-10, right, but your turnover is so high. And the profit margin for it is so good. Why are there not more people doing this these days? What's the response? Is it, well, simply because the demand is getting less. It wasn't because people are looking less at pirated movies or looking at porn lesser. It was simply because they were looking at other sources. So which brings me to my next point. Is right now pornography as a whole is being fueled, by the internet. Okay, just to give you again, right? Okay, my maths, very bad one, but I'm just trying to, because maybe the number is incomprehensible. Okay, I never seen these numbers before. Like, for example, they are using terminology, maths terminology like zettabytes. Okay. All right, I only know gigabyte, okay? Now they're using zettabytes, okay? So it says the internet traffic will reach 1.1, it already reached by the end of 2019, it says. That means right now, right, our internet traffic is 1.1 zettabytes per year, okay? So just to give you an idea what zettabyte is, okay? Zettabyte equivalent is 36 years of high definition videos, okay, which in turn is equivalent to streaming. Okay, some of you I know got Netflix, got Disney Plus, all that these days. Okay, so let's take Netflix, because Netflix is the first on the scene for streaming, right? So it's equivalent to streaming Netflix entire catalog of movies 3,177 times. That's the equivalent of what 1 zettabyte, okay, looks like, okay? All right, then the amount of data traveling over the internet, in just 3 minutes, okay, in digital equivalent, okay? So 1 minute of data transmitting, 3 minutes of data transmitting over the internet is equivalent to every motion picture ever made in the last 120 years. Okay, so that's the internet for us. Okay, now how is it in terms of pornography? Okay, so you look at it, right? So it says one porn site total bandwidth in this recent years, right, is again the number 3,110 petabytes. Okay, which is equivalent to I'm counting 3 billion gigabyte. Okay, so if you will print this out, right, okay, it will be the equivalent of let's say you print all in pages. You print out this data in pages. Okay, you will require one person to count the pages. Okay, if let's say one person count the pages of data that is on one pornographic website, they would take 1 million years to finish counting. I mean, again, so okay, the reason why I share with you this, right, just to let you know that it is really overwhelming when it comes to the availability of pornography on the website. Because, and it's not doctor, yeah, he is a doctor. Josh McDowell, right, when he first started this new push and helping people to understand pornography, right, he started a website called Just 2 Clicks Away. Right, and the meaning for that is that nowadays, right, it is that easy. That means your child who has access to the internet, anybody, a child who has access to it, all it takes, right, is 2 clicks to get onto a pornographic website. Okay, first you open the browser, okay, you type in the keyword like what I showed you earlier, right? Okay, first click, first click is to show you all the search result. Okay. Then after that, when you click again on one of the search result, the second click, right, you are already in a pornography website. So that's how easy it is, just 2 clicks away, okay? And the availability of it is intense. Now, coming to present day and the struggle that we're going through right now, right, with the pandemic. So this is the one, it's a combination of studies that was accumulated from Asia, as well as the European country, as well as the America, the Western country as it is, right? And said that what has happened. Of course, this study is not just on pornography, but the negative behavior of internet use and etc. Right? And so you have all this, and it says that basically what the pandemic has done, right? Because there is an increase. Okay, there is an increase in terms of streaming service. That means Netflix, they have increased in terms of subscription. Websites, things, have increased in terms of subscription by many folds. And the conclusion of this study basically says, right, that the pandemic has actually intensified the problem of behavioral addiction, problematic internet use, as well as pornography across the board. Okay, and so pandemic, right, because again, it's double-edged sword, right? We talk about the internet being greatly used right now for the continuation of ministry, for the continuation of work like us, and Focus on the Family. We were still able to carry out our program simply because of the invention of technology called the internet. And with the increase of broadband speed, we're able to connect without much interruption, and we are able to do this right now, and still be able to have a decent interaction and teaching session. But with that comes the issue of behavioral addiction, as well, or rather addiction and problematic internet use, as well as pornography that comes with it. Okay, so with that, right, I mean, you look at, again, right, broadband speed. I live in a country that has the fastest broadband speed, not in Asia, but in the world. Right, so the latest, I know some of you like, I won't tell you how much I'm paying for my broadband now, okay? So, all right, it is really affordable, but yet at the same time, so much faster and, etc. I mean, but again, people always, marvel and say, wow, such great place to be, because, everything is cheaper in terms of how even for dollar to dollar conversion is still cheaper. for some of the things that we have here. And so Singapore is the fastest broadband speed in the world. Okay, with that comes, I always tell people, right, there is a price you pay for progress. Okay, and you can see that, right? Singapore is the second most internet addicted people in the world as well. Okay, so there is a price you pay for progress, and any smartphone is potential for a virtual crime. Even though we are so technologically savvy here in Singapore, but you can see that the amount of scam that happens, in Singapore is also very, very high. Okay, so that's just on internet. One more, pornography as a whole, and so this is it. Okay, so now this is country with the longest average session time on pornography, right? Okay, so Malaysia is not very far behind. Okay, so this is the top 15 countries that spend the most time. Okay, we're talking about the world. Again, this is not an Asian stat. We're talking about the world of country that spends the greatest time or the longest time on a pornographic website. Okay, number one is Kuwait. You look at the top 10 countries. Look at the top 10 countries. They are all countries that has a law that bans pornography. Do you know that? Okay, top 10. Okay, most of these countries in the top 10 has a ban, on pornography. But yet at the same time, they are the top 10 in terms of the number of time they spend, the longest time spent average per session on a pornography website. Okay, Singapore number 2, Malaysia is 8. Yeah, 8 on the list. Okay, right. So the issue right now is because while it is illegal, there is an issue with the law, meaning that there is no law that prosecute people from streaming porn. The law actually just covers possession of pornography. Okay, so meaning that if you have porn on your devices, that's can be prosecuted by the law, but the law is vague when it comes to streaming. Okay, so again, I just wanted to show you that the reality of it. While pornography is still illegal in many of the Asian countries, but it's no less not impactful. Again, some survey to show you 9 in 10 teens boys, surveyed here in Singapore, being exposed to pornography, right? 9 in 10 boys, and 50% rise in cases related to internet porn addiction in over just a year. Okay, and so these are some of the Singapore highlights. I want to bring to you some of the Malaysian highlights, right? Again, sorry for my friends from Mongolia. I didn't do a little bit of deep dive, into the issue that Mongolia is struggling with. So again, 94% of Malaysian kids are exposed to pornography. So again, right, if you look at both countries, right, they are about the same. Okay, and of course, for children watching porn, it says left alone to their own devices, where small children has been secretly viewing pornography, and some of them have even mimicked what they see online. Okay, and again, right, you will see later on with the link of research that I'm going to pass on to you, the link between pornography and sexual crimes. Okay, so this is the news in Malacca, my beloved hometown. Okay, they are treating, obviously this is a little bit dated, but again, no less concerning. 3 children a week for sexual abuse. Okay, and so what some of the keys, obviously it's not just pornography per se, but some of the keys are highlighted. But one of the main issue for this sexual abuse, right, is because of their access to explicit website. Okay, obviously lack of parental supervision is always the case. Lack of healthy pastime, they actually push them towards access to pornographic website. Okay, so this is again an issue. Just to highlight that again, these are news. They're not really research per se, because there's no really a big concerted effort into researching the impact of porn in Malaysia. But just to have you have an idea of what we're confronted with. And Malaysia, okay, this one is even more concerning. Malaysia tops Southeast Asia for online child pornography. Okay, so that means an average of, it says an average of 117 children a year were sexually assaulted by perpetrators whom they had befriended through channels such as WeChat, Facebook, and WhatsApp. Okay, now again, those of you who are interested and keen, right? The Star newspaper, the youth department called the RAGE, R-A-G-E, right? R-H-R-A-G-E, okay, called the RAGE, right? Basically, they have actually come to international prominence, right? Because of some of the exposés they have done, okay? Then, of course, one of it, which we always use in our training program with youth, right, is the one that actually did an expose on how easy it is, okay, for people, they call it predator in my phone, okay? So basically talking about how easy it is, for our young people to be caught up, with people who have ill intent, and they were using WeChat as an example. So one of their journalists posed as a 15-year-old, and just within 10 minutes, there were already a few people propositioning to actually be their friend, okay, knowing that the profile is only 15 years old. And the proposition does not end there. The proposition actually goes on to basically getting them to meet face to face. Okay, so they actually, when they did the expose, they went face to face meeting with these people, wanting to find out what kind of predators, that the Malaysians are being faced with. Are they those that lurks in the dark, have a certain disposition, etc., etc., etc. And what they found out, right? These are average Joes. And some of them are very, very, good looking, smart guys, and the one that we always use is basically a teacher of about 27 years old who speaks fluently, who is, like the journalists say, can be passed off as, a really concerned big brother, who, etc. Then, of course, their conversation leads to, propositioning of sex with a minor, because she was, or rather she's posing as a 15-year-old, right? And this 27-year-old teacher, okay, was already propositioning her for a sexual encounter, knowing that she's only 15 years old. And obviously, through what they found out later, is that he has actually had, these encounters with other kids, of 13, 14 years old. Okay, so child abuse, right? And child pornography as a whole is a very big thing in Malaysia, and this is worrying. Okay, it's a worrying trend because child pornography, again, I have not done a very deep study, but you see, nobody. What I always tell people is that nobody become a child pornographer, on the onset. It's basically a slippery slope, right? That slides down. That starts with maybe very, very so-called innocent, pornographic material, okay. And you will find out later on, how this addiction, right, fuels a person, right, to get involved into some of these more deviant form of materials, right. And so basically, this is basically the issue that's confronting us these days. Okay, so all right. So again, let's move on. I want to go through very quickly because I want to just kind of take a quick break because it is by the hour already. And I want to give you a quick view of some of the things that the Focus Singapore has done, in terms of survey with the church as a whole, right? So how prevalent it is with the Singapore church. Again, take this with a pinch of salt because, it may be reflective, okay? I want to think that, there is some truth in it in terms of a reflection for the Malaysian church as well, because of how closely related we are with Singapore. So ever viewpoint is 69%, which is quite high. Viewpoint in the last 6 months. Okay, so viewing of pornography with the Christian community is just as high, okay, as with the public. Okay, as you can see here, right? And the age group, which is the highest in terms of percentage, right, between the age of 13 to 19 years old. Okay, who in terms of age, the youngest age when they are exposed to pornography. Okay, and so this is the stats on that. And viewpoint at least have viewpoint at least once. So you can see, right, before the age of 12, okay, is quite a high percentage, but before the age of 19 is obviously makes the highest percentage, and these are basically the young adults, okay? And so young adults now, meaning that, probably a decade ago, this is where they were first exposed to pornography. Okay, again, this is just an overview, just to show you, again, right? I must remind you, this is the survey that's done for the churches, okay? And so more young people are viewing porn at a younger age. So this is basically just the highlight of that. Then of course, the next one, the porn, as I mentioned earlier, porn is not just a male issue, but also an issue that's confronting females as well. So you can see, right? So the difference, obviously, guys still makes up the greater percentage, but women as a whole, there is, a growing increased number, okay, of people struggling with pornography, okay? So it's no longer just a male issue, all right? So just to highlight for this, right? As I mentioned to you, Josh McDowell's own research shows that every 3% that are struggling with porn, one of them is a woman, okay? Then, of course, porn use among male is most prevalent among the single young adults, okay? So as you can see here in terms of the statistics, right, when it comes to who is viewing and using porn the most among the Christian community, it is the single young adults. And similarly, okay, porn use among female is most prevalent as well among the single young adults, but followed by the youth after that, right? Then when it comes to talking about the top 3 addictive behavior of Christian youth in Singapore, so these are the 3, they're all I don't know whether you realize this, all of it is related some form or another to pornography. Okay, the first one, of course, is masturbation, which is very closely related to pornography. And of course, third on the list is basically internet or gaming addiction, which is, again, the medium is basically the platform of the internet, right? And so just to give you an overview, right? Then, of course, with the clergies, pastors struggling with pornography, as you can see, again, when it comes to the study with Bana, right? You can see that there are 57% of youth, so it's 57% of pastors, are actually struggling with the issue. And there is, a more increased number, 60
from low battery.
Okay. There is, a higher number in terms of youth pastors that are actually struggling with this, okay? So again, very quickly, prevalence on the church front. I mentioned this earlier, 57 pastors, admit struggling with porn. And 60% of Christian men and 40% of Christian women are struggling with porn. So all these are studies being done on the church front. This is the global one that is done by the US, a few US entities, right? And 79% of men, 76% women aged 18 to 13 viewing porn at least monthly. 90% of children have seen porn. And the global average is actually 43. So quite high in that sense, talking about church front. Okay. Then, of course, 30% of church, again, the effects on porn. 30% of pastors reported that they have had an affair as a result of pornography. 70% of those addicted to porn have suicidal thoughts. 56% of divorce report a spouse porn use as a primary factor. Okay, and I just want to highlight one more thing that is not on the list here. That says, which I actually found recently, again from Josh McDowell, that says 7 out of 10 women or pornography users, right, show symptoms of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. 7 out of the 10 wives of husband who are addicted to porn, right, actually show symptoms of PTSD when they learn of their husband's use of pornography. Not only the sin is affecting the person in it, they are also affecting the wives and the entire family as well. And so this is the reality that we are faced with. And so with this, I just want to take a pause. And for you guys, I saw some questions earlier already at the Slido, but let's just take a pause right now, maybe a 5 minutes pause. I know there's a lot to digest, and let's just take a quick 5 minutes break, and we will resume again after we take a short break. Okay, so let's do that. Pastor Thomas, do you have any announcement?
Let's take the 5 minutes break.
Okay, so if not, yeah, let's go ahead and take the 5 minute break, and we will resume shortly after this. Okay.
Control V, enter. Double enter it becomes send. That's it. And then snip A. Okay. Logic. Logic expand. Logic expand. Put on. Okay then.
so far. And I guess we are going to start again very soon. Before I do that, I would like to introduce our president, the president of our seminary, Dr. John Ong. Yeah, Dr. John Ong, are you there? Can you say a few words? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, just say hi to everybody. And I praise God for this wonderful meeting, and thanks for our brothers who share, and also the BRC of MBTS to organize this. But we'll be able to help many, many people. Praise the Lord. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ong. Yeah. Yeah, Joshua, back to you. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Pastor Thomas. Thank you so much, Dr. Ong. And yeah, so let's continue. I was just glancing over to the Slido questions. I know some of you were saying that it was truly overwhelming, and the Monday has become bluer because we are starting out with such a heavy topic this week. Yeah, but yeah, we need to press through and really like Dr. Ong say, right? How can we as the community begin to rally together to see how we can manage this issue, how we can have a battle plan that works, yeah, for as we confront the issue of pornography. Kim Sui, your hand is raised. I'm just wondering whether it's because you have a question or you accidentally click it. Can you see you there? Yeah. So if not, then yeah, because I see the hand. When I say that, it feels like an altar call, right? So we can also do altar call as well, or over Zoom, because there's a raise hand function. Okay. All right. Some of the questions that you have, as I mentioned, I'm looking at slides. Some of the questions you have is actually related to the to more like the how, which I will be talking about in this session. So it's more like the how do we do this, how do we do that. So basically I want to probably address that later on, yeah, because some of this question I'll be addressing it as we go along already. Okay, so just let me do that as we go along the Q&As, because there's no questions that is something that is not part of the session I'm going to cover. So I'll just leave it as it is first and look at it later. Okay, again now, so we talk about the issues, as you can see, just very briefly, many stats, but the statistics in terms of the global pandemic of pornography, as well as more closer to home, as a whole, the church, how the church is struggling with the issue in the Singapore context. And as I mentioned earlier again, I think we need to look at it to see how. I mean, I think again there's some reflection to it as well, and we need to just basically see how we can how we can manage and confront this issue together. Okay, right? So this is it. Now, if you can help me, right, talking about the church, right? So I thought this was a good survey to also get you guys to help me with. So talking about the church, right? We know that the issue has been around. The problem has been around for many decades, if many years, if not decades, So what do you think, as who you are represented today, as an individual, as a church leader, as a pastor, or as an educator, right? What do you think is hindering the church from addressing the issue of pornography? Okay, so if you can help me with this survey, you can see that that there are a few options that's given to you in the Mentimeter. I thought if you can just help me to just based on your understanding, all right, what do you think would be some of the issues that is hindering? So the key here is hindering. What are some of the issues that's hindering the church from truly addressing the problem of pornography? Okay. So please help me to do that. If go again to Mentimeter. If you were there on the page, you should have been brought to this particular survey. Okay, the code is 41863649. Okay, all right, just have a quick look. Okay, this yeah, the survey is coming in. Yeah, please continue. Okay, so very high on it is basically don't know how or not equipped to. Yeah, I think that's really one of the big struggles, right? Some of you are also talking in the chat box. See you. Okay, so ignorance or too big a problem, Alina is saying. Okay. Okay, so Lina also have a question on the effects of porn addiction affecting school attendance. Yeah. Directly, school attendance, I have not come across that. The direct impact on school attendance and pornography use, yeah, I've not really come across that. Yeah, so basically, so the answer is yeah, no, because I have not come across it. Yeah, or know of. Yeah, they may be, but I have not. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, just give you a few more moments. So don't know how in terms of hindrance is still one of the biggest, okay, obstacle when it comes to addressing the issue of pornography in the church. Anyone else? If no, I'm just going to move on. Okay. Yeah, I think the stats will not differ very much. So it is really not being equipped, right? I think just by mobile phone, yes, yeah, it's true. Yeah. Calling, yeah. Mobile phone is actually one of the easiest, greatest access these days to pornography. And the word is there, lah. You say mobile phone, right? Because of its mobility. Okay. That's why it's like literally, right? You know, the pornography sometimes, not sometimes, pornography is truly viewed in private. Okay. And privacy is very key and important. So because of the mobility of pornography these days, accessibility is one thing. The other one is mobility, right? Because you bring your handphone, you can bring your handphone anywhere. You can literally hide in the toilet if your house is too crowded, okay, to basically access porn. Okay, so the mobility of it also is an issue. Okay, so basically this is, thank you so much for helping me with the survey. And again, it's not very different from the one that we did in Singapore as well. As you can see, right, Singapore's survey has mentioned that don't know and not equipped to do so as being one of the hindrance. Okay, and so I hope that through today's session, yeah, it may be a lot to digest, right? So at the very least, okay. So at the very least, right, what I am hoping, right, with this is that, you know, we may not be able to address, come into the know-how and really go deep into it, because I think that one requires, you know, much more kind of how to say, training, and just basically going through a little bit more deeper understanding. What there's only so much we can do in 3 hours, but just having to bring the awareness. I think some of you are resonating with that. Just having an awareness of the seriousness of the problem, right? Hopefully, you know, basically really inspire us to dive in, right? To say, okay, what can we really do with the issue confronting us today? Is there any hope? All right. I think one of the things, key things that I've not say experience, but I have actually done wrong in the past, right? It's always talk about the loom and gloom and doom, right? And people actually feel hopeless rather than hopeful at the end. So I tend to just not that is not a serious problem, but I think there is really things that we can do to confront it. And one of it is really to be aware of the issue and to be aware of the impact. Okay, so again, right, in terms of the issue, this is where the new studies have come in to assist all of us, right? Not just, you know, the public, but the church community as a whole, to bridge the big divide, right? In terms of the equipping of people, right, to help in the struggle in the pandemic of pornography. Okay, so the peer review research, okay, if you can summarize, there's many of it. Okay, if you can just summarize it to the three main issue of what pornography is doing to us human beings as a whole, right, to humanity, is that first and foremost, as you can see, right, it says pornography affects the brain. And I'm going to illustrate to you, in a very simple illustration, right, which will give you kind of like an awareness, right, and something that we can actually. This is what we do. When we talk to young people, we talk to even pre-adolescents, understanding the issue of pornography, right, from this very simple perspective. Okay, but we must basically know that again, right, pornography changes, the brain. And we are talking about a physical change, okay? All right, because it's neurological in nature, okay? And because of which I will explain later, but I just want to give you a heads up into how pornography affects the brain, okay? Then the next one, okay, so now again, this again, the study that's shown, right? So the research has been done very much again by Josh McDowell that basically says, right, just to give you an idea of why pornography is so addictive, right? It says that when it comes to the addiction of alcohol, okay, let's use another addiction as a guide. When it comes to alcohol, okay, so it says here, alcohol takes about 6 minutes, 6 minutes to affect the brain. Okay, so this is alcohol. Alcohol takes about 6 minutes to actually affect the brain. Okay, and heroin, which is the drug, heroin takes about 10 to 20 seconds to actually affect the brain. So alcohol, 6 minutes, heroin, 10 to 20 seconds. But when it comes to pornography, it takes half a second. Okay, I know, it sounds, so you can see, right, why it is so addictive. Because it only takes half a second for pornography to reach the brain, as opposed to alcohol that takes 6 minutes, as opposed to heroin that takes 10 to 20 seconds. Okay, so pornography is a brain problem. Josh McDowell said pornography is a brain problem before it is a moral problem. I mentioned this earlier. And the other one that is that affects, basically that comes into effects, right, is the heart. So pornography affects the heart. And what this basically means is that what pornography does, right, because of the promise of that it gives, okay, it actually affects and kill relationship. It kills love, basically. That's what it's trying to say. That when it comes to, it affects the soul so deeply, right, that pornography is used as a sign of an emotional wound. But yet at the same time, when people are engaged in it, it actually destroys relationship. The very one thing that a person needs is intimacy and meaningful relationship. But what it does, okay, it actually destroys relationship. A person who is so deep entrenched into pornography as a single, as an individual who is not married, basically it makes it more difficult for the individual to actually, even bring up the nerve and the courage to actually basically start meaningful relationship. Okay, so even before it starts, it already destroyed. Then of course, I spoke about it in terms of marriage, how it does, what it does to marriage. Okay, it destroys relationships. So pornography affects the heart. Then of course, the last thing is, pornography affects the world, simply because, this is what they say, the dirty little secret, right? That viewing pornography, right, is not just an individual thing, but it is really something that affects the world as a whole. Why? Because again, right, many things, pornography not only makes the porn industry, the making of movies, making production of this pornographic product, right, to thrive, because there's more demand, so it actually makes the business thrive. But the other thing that it does, right, it actually increases, things like human trafficking. Okay, it increases, the use of drugs, because, you can see, right, the secret that we don't really see is that basically people who are in the industry, okay, are basically lifestyle that is filled with addiction, filled with abuse, filled with, just a vicious cycle that sometimes, that is so hard to get out of. And because the demand, what pornography does, right, it actually creates a demand for what? It creates a demand for sex. And so, the whole issue of prostitution goes up, the demand for prostitution goes up. And when there's not enough to go around, because business is thriving, that's when the human trafficking, part comes into play. So it's not just a private struggle and private issue. It actually, creates and make the vices of the world, right, to thrive as well. Okay, so again, a big picture of how porn affects all of us, in big ways and small ways. But just to now bring it down to a smaller scale, a smaller understanding, right, is basically to understand the brain. Okay, so what I want to show you, right, is an illustration. And this is what, again, I told you what we do to help young people understand how pornography actually rewires the brain. It actually literally affects us physically by the rewiring of our brain, right? And so imagine the brain, don't need to imagine. Basically, the brain as a whole, right, is what we call, the brain is neuroplasticity in nature. Okay, so if you can, I don't know whether you can say that with me. Say neuroplasticity, okay? Say it very fast 10 times. Okay, no, just kidding. Okay, it's a mouthful, right? Neuroplasticity, okay? I find it a trouble to pronounce it as well. But what it basically means, okay, if you can just imagine with me, what it basically means, right, is our brain, right, is like plasticine, okay? Meaning that our brain constantly changes through time. Okay, so just to give you a very simple illustration, man, like let's say, you want to learn something new. Okay, for example, let's say you want to learn a new language. Okay, so every day you practice, your Korean. Okay, a lot of us are into Korean these days because of K-drama or whatever. Like you want to learn Greek, you want to learn Hebrew. Okay, so what you do is you practice, right? So obviously, initially, it becomes, a little bit of a hassle because you don't really know the language. But because you are habitually practicing how to speak it, you are reading about it and you are practicing to speak it, what happens is that what it does is that in your mind, right, it creates a neural pathway for learning the language. Okay? So as you continue to practice it on a daily basis, what happens is that the neural pathway becomes deeper and deeper and deeper, so much so, right, that it comes to a time, right, where you can become actually fluent, in let's say, the language, okay? And so it's the same thing when it comes to pornography, right? This is where I'll show you the illustration. When it comes to pornography, right, imagine your brain is like this, okay? And a neural pathway is created when a person is watching porn. And what happens is that the neural pathway becomes deeper and deeper when you engage in porn more and more so, all right, deepens still further and deeper when pornography is combined with masturbation, okay? And so that neural pathway that's created in the mind, right, becomes so deep, okay? It becomes so deep that right now, right, you can see the deep gash there. So right now, what happens, for example, is that everything in life, right, just basically flows through that neural pathway. Okay, so why porn can sometimes, be so damaging, right, is when a person is so addicted to porn, again, right, because it's a neural pathway that is created. And because of that craving or wanting to watch porn more and more and more, right, that neural pathway keeps getting, crossed over, and the wound becomes deeper and the gash becomes deeper and deeper and deeper. And so right now, imagine, right, everything else we do in life. For example, the joy that we find from meeting friends, very quickly goes into that deep, valley and gash, simply because, meeting friends used to bring pleasure and delight. But now we have linked pleasure and delight so much so with porn that no other pleasures can actually, come to basically be the same. Okay, and so from meeting friends to reading the Bible to doing things that we used to enjoy, like doing sports or watching TV, whatever, like all of it just basically because that neural pathway is so deep now. Everything that brings us pleasure, right, flows into this. Okay, right, and that is how our brain, right, is literally physically rewired. When it comes to the idea of pornography, that's why we need to understand this. Okay, so I have many other things, to talk about how the impact of the brain, which I know I will not go into details, but just to let you all have an idea. Okay, it says here pornography is like a drug. it changes the brain, it's addictive. These are things that we have already mentioned. And just by that understanding of the neural pathway, right, of being the pathway is so deep, right, that everything else that we experience that brings us joy, right, basically just flows through that neural pathway that brings a person back to pornography, because all the other pleasures do not compare to the pleasures that we derive from pornography. Now, this is where I want to talk about how pornography is actually different from other addiction. Now, when it comes to, let's say, a issue with drug addiction or alcohol addiction, okay? So how this is different from porn is that when it comes to drugs and alcohol addiction, what a person needs and crave for, right, is the actual product in itself. Meaning that if I'm addicted to drugs, what do I want most in a day? The drugs. So I go to look for the drugs, and the drugs satisfy me for a while. Then after that, I'm okay. Then I go on with life. Then again, I get the craving. I go back to the same drugs again to get the high. Then after that, the vicious cycles continue. If I'm addicted to alcohol, it's the same vicious cycle. Now, the difference with pornography is that, this is what the experts use, right? Pornography basically is not addiction to the particular product. Pornography addiction is basically an addiction to the novelty. It's called novelty addiction. What novelty addiction means is that you are addicted to the thrill and the high that you felt the first time you watched porn. Let me repeat that. Novelty addiction means is you are addicted to the high, to the feeling that you felt when you first was exposed to porn, and that rush, that you felt, okay? And you know that this is so dangerous in nature, right? So therefore, a person who is addicted to porn is not addicted to that particular product. Let's say he watches the porn or she watches the porn, okay? Then after a while, right, they get really bored with it, simply because they cannot duplicate the novelty feeling they felt like the first time they watched that particular porn, okay? And so this drives them to look for other products, look for other forms of pornography. And so this is where it leads from just like maybe, watching what the terminology, the softcore pornography, something that is not so explicit, to something more explicit. And then after, even with explicit pornography, after a while, you get bored with it because the novelty wears off, as all of us know. Then therefore, you look for other things that becomes, that gives you the high. From explicit porn, it leads to even more perversive porn in nature, all right? And that's why when I told you about child pornography, right, a person does not, again, there's a lot of psychological issue that is behind a person who is engaging in child pornography, okay? But it starts with something so-called innocent, like, watching a show that doesn't really, constitute pornography these days, okay? But it is, it is porn, in the eyes of all of us here, right? Simply because for us, our definition of pornography is any kind of media form that arouses you sexually. To me, that's my definition, okay? Any kind of product that arouses a person sexually, that is pornography to me, okay? So a person starts there, then after it escalates because now the addiction is there and it doesn't satisfy them anymore. And so they keep looking for new things. They keep looking for new forms of porn. They keep looking for harder, more explicit pornography. That includes, child pornography. It goes down. It's a vicious, it's a spiral, okay? And it goes down that way. So pornography, right? And the brain, so that's one thing. Then the next thing, it affects love. It affects the heart because, you say it kills love and it gives you an illusion of a relationship that is not there. Okay, it gives you an illusion of intimacy that is not there. It hurts your spouse, and it basically, the one thing that people are looking for, relationship, intimacy, the feeling that they get when they are in love, all those are being ruined because, you end up actually feeling more empty because of that vicious cycle that a person is involved in. Then last but not least, right, I already told you the dirty little secret, that porn, how it affects the world. Okay, porn leads to a lot of violence. Okay, now, the difference again, right, in this day and age, the difference between porn to this day as compared to a few decades ago is that it's becoming more and more violent in nature. Okay, and so again, right, what what constitute pornography maybe 50 years ago, that means they will only, even in America, right? They will only show, let's say, this movie, okay, in an R-rated theater. That means only those who are above 21 years old can go and view it. Okay, maybe 20, 30, 40 years ago. Only in the R-rated theaters can you go and view such movie. But let me tell you guys, these days, right, Netflix, you can already, all those movies, right, that used to be pornographic in nature, only reserved at R-rated movies, R-rated theaters, are available on your Netflix these days. Okay? All right, that's why I think earlier there was talk about censoring Netflix and things like that, but I think it fell through because there's no way Netflix is going to censor. Obviously, the compromise that they had with countries that bans pornographic material, right? The compromise that they came to is that they will say, okay, there are certain movies we will not stream in your country. But you see, when it comes to what you call it, when it comes to streaming movies, right? Again, right, this one is technology, right? A person can use a VPN, okay? A VPN to basically hide and mask where they are viewing their devices from. And some of these movies are available, okay? Yeah, so Dr. CL says too broad a definition. Maybe you can just let me know a little bit of what you mean, definition of what? You are referring to what? Okay, maybe you can just continue and give me some information on what you're talking about in terms of definition of being too broad. Okay, I think you're talking about pornography, right? Okay, if that's the case, okay. If not, if you can just explain a little bit more, Dr. CL. Okay. Now, so again, I want to share with you. So some of these things, again, you don't have to type it down because all these are not just basically statements, but they are actually based on research. As I told you again, right, across the board, there are actually many peer review research that are accumulating, as a form of just trying to help people to see the impact of pornography on us as a whole. Okay, so I don't want to go into details because I mentioned this earlier. And I want to just pause for a while before I go to my next segment, right? To basically help you to, again, right, it's always the us against them feeling, right? But I want to show you basically a video right now. A former porn star who is basically right now on the side of what we are talking about these days. Okay, so you listen to his story, and I want you to hear what I'm saying all this while, right? Is not just research. It's not just us against them kind of position, but it's really right now people on the other side, people who are entrenched, used to be entrenched, in this whole porn industry. They are also speaking out, and I want you to hear their story. Okay, so this is it. Right, just a thumbs up if you the sound is okay.
Back in the early 80s,
sound is okay.
I went to California.
Okay, good. Thank you.
To pursue acting. I actually did pretty well. I got a manager, an agent. First week I was there, I got a motion picture. I remember thinking to myself, what's the big deal? This isn't so hard. Well, then the writer's strike happened. Everything in Hollywood shut down. Certainly actors, producers, directors, costume people, florists, caterers. Nobody was working, so everybody started to get hungry, including me. Well, I subsidized my income by doing modeling work. And one particular job, makeup artist handed me her card, and she said, if you ever want to do any nude work, give this number a call and you can make some money. Well, I took it, and I was grateful, thanked her, knowing full well that as soon as I did anything like that, it would ruin my career. Well, after about a month of starving, I decided that I was going to make that phone call. I had a can of beans and one can of potatoes in my cupboard, and I was hungry. They said, be at this place at a certain time. So I jumped on my motorcycle the next morning, and I went, and I made my first porno. I walked out of there at the end of the day with 4 crisp, brand new $100 bills. I was thinking how easy that was. But I also remember thinking, what have I done? Someday someone will find out. Well, little did I know that it would turn into this. I became the most popular, most decorated male adult film star of all time. The phone never stopped ringing. The money kept getting bigger and bigger. My mother had no idea. She was completely taken by storm. Shocked her, hurt her. I didn't know what love was. I didn't even know if I could feel love anymore. I looked at women like objects. There was no emotion involved in the act of making love. What was that, making love? I had sex for money. I was a prostitute. I couldn't feel anymore. See, for me, I had to go to work to do the porn so that I could buy the drugs to bury the pain of doing the porn. So I'd go to work and do the porn so that I could buy the drugs to bury the pain. And around it went. What pornography did to me was it changed how I thought and felt about women. I began to look at them even more so as a sexual object. I lost the ability to have a loving and caring relationship. I thought I was still able. I was fooled. One day, I left the set. I was done for the day. Got in my car, started it up, drove 2 blocks, pulled over and turned it off. And I started to cry. I wanted out so bad. I wanted to get off that merry-go-round. It's the last movie I ever made. And I never went back. And I changed my life. I began my life. You see, if I can change my heart, anybody can.
I thought it was just really interesting that, person on the other side, right, is really resonating with what we've been trying to tell people all this while. And I think it's important for us to take note, right, that the very same emptiness that people are feeling, as a result of porn is actually happening with people who are producing them as well. And the impact, that you see. And I will address Dr. CL's statement on the definition of pornography. But before I do that, right, I mean, this way I want to just kind of break us up into our small groups, right, to discuss this, because I think at the heart of it, right, really is for us to look at the reason. I mean, there are many reasons that is fueling or rather pushing people into pornography. And I'm just going to just summarize it to a few that is highlighted. And before we do that, just the scriptural text again, right, which is basically the one of the key scripture text that I'm taking from, and it talks about the idols of our heart. So it says, put to death, right, the sinful earthly things that's lurking within you. Have nothing to do with sexual immorality, impurity, lust, and evil desires, and greed, which is idolatry. And so the whole idea is that anything that is not that we put first in our life, right, basically that's an idol. And the other good resource that that is really helpful in dealing with the issue of pornography, right, is actually by Tim Chester. I have gone through a little bit in terms of his perspective and idea of this whole struggle and issue with pornography. So Tim Chester, in his book called Closing the Window, right, basically talks about the 6 motivation, the 6 things that kind of fuel pornography addiction, right? And I would term this as the idols of our heart. And so, and he says here, right, really is the matter of the heart, right? Really, or rather the heart of the matter really is the matter of the heart, right? And until we deal with, again, now that you know, it's a brain problem, you know, to realize the neurological impact of pornography. And right now we need to deal with the heart problem. Okay, so instead of just, you know, keep, you know, looking at the cause, you know, which is, you know, the availability of pornography and etc. But really to look at you know, within and see where we can really put safeguards in that sense. So if you look at this, you know, as a whole, I want you to look at it in that perspective, right? And so it says the root, right, always is, you know, about the heart and its sinful nature, right? And when we obviously, you know, put on the new self, when we are a new creation again, we put on a new self, but some of this nature is still lingering, and it actually takes, you know, a lifetime, you know, in our Christian journey to actually really put off this old self as it is. And so when it comes to porn, we need to know that these things, you know, still basically would actually fuel those, you know, desires for pornography. Just give me an example, okay? So when it comes to respect, for example, it says when our craving for respect, right, becomes an idol. Okay, basically porn offers us the fantasy world where we are worshipped and adored, you know, and that's how it feels it. That's basically our trigger, because we're craving for respect. You know, we want people to acknowledge us, etc. Then when it comes to relationship, when our craving for intimacy becomes an idol, right? Porn offers the illusion of relationship without the risk of rejection or being vulnerable, right? All of us know that relationship is messy. But, you know, porn creates the illusion that relationship is this, you know, smooth sailing and, you know, anything you want and everything is about you kind of relationship, right? And obviously we know that that's. Then of course the third one, it provides a refuge. Okay, how the refuge feels is that when life gets too tough, you know, and our craving to escape becomes an idol. Porn gives us the fantasy world where we will never be a failure, where there is no where there are no expectation, you know. We will you know, be free of this sense of feelings of failure, and when we want to escape, you know, that's where porn comes in and feels it in that sense. When it's a reward, when our desire for reward becomes, you know, a sinful sense of entitlement, you know, we feel underappreciated and we feel that this is, you know, this is something that we need, you know, and we deserve. Okay, then, you know, porn gives us the reward in that sense. Or revenge, you know, when our anger at God or life or at our spouse or somebody gets out of control, porn becomes, you know, a tantrum where we can throw our tantrum and cater to our need to seek revenge, but not able to carry out, to execute it in real life. Then, of course, you know, redemption, when self-pity becomes a consuming desire, porn offers us a fantasy where we can feel normal, or even the place, you know, where we punish ourselves, you know, and that's, you know, again, you know, these are not bad things in its form, in its nature, but when it becomes an idol, I mean, maybe besides revenge, maybe, you know, even revenge, you know, at the heart of it, our revenge is just basically our not being able to control or just being angry with life, you know, management of our emotions, you know, and all these things, right, are not bad in nature, but it can become an idol, and it can be, you know, the platform that actually feels, you know, that actually motivates people to get involved in pornography. And we need to put safeguards over these things. So my question for you today, right, if we can just go into our small groups afterwards, right? If you can do this, please go ahead. If you cannot, then it's okay. Meaning that appoint somebody, right, to go to Mentimeter, right, to help just type in, you know, what the group is discussing, you know, and the question I want to ask, right, is I'm going to put there in the chat box right now, okay, with the Mentimeter link. And so what I want you to do is that I want you to discuss the question here, right? If we know that these 6 things, right, are a vulnerability for anybody, for any individual, right, it can become a vulnerable thing where we are basically can become an idol as it is, huh? All right. So what do we how can we battle, rather, or rather the word can we counter? All right, battle, you know, seems very offensive, right? But really counter. What are the things that we can put in place, right? Okay, when it comes to respect, relationship, refuge, reward, revenge, and redemption, right? Then that can actually safeguard us, you know, from pushing an individual into the need for pornography. Okay, So just let me get this for you. So what I want to do right now, before I get Christina, if I'm not mistaken, to just help us with the breakout room. Let me put this in. Let me see what I can do. Okay, just hold on a minute. Okay, so if you can help me with the, just hold on a minute. I'm just trying to copy the link for you. Okay, or maybe some of you can just kind of take this, because I'm having a trouble copying. Maybe some of you can just take a quick shot of this. Tell you what, let's do this. I'm going to stop share. Just hold on a minute. Just okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I think I cannot. Somehow.
It's all right, Lucia. Just try to remember, or if not, just take a shot of it and I can discuss.
Okay, yeah. All right. Okay, yeah. Thank you so much, Sagana. I think you have put in the screenshot. Okay, so yeah, let's do that because I can't copy and paste. So Sagana has been gracious to put the screenshot there. So maybe you can go into we're going to break out into the rooms right now. Just talk about the battle plan or the counters, right? How can we counter, these 6 vulnerabilities that we have, right? They are to basically counter the problem. What battle plans, what counters can we have to basically overcome, the motivation for pornography in these 6 R's. Okay.
How long? How long?
Let's do about 7 minutes of discussion. Then after that we can come back. All right.
Okay. Yeah, Christian, you can break us now.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. I'll see you guys in a bit. Okay. Time was good time of just unloading a little bit.
A bit too short.
A bit, yeah. I know, right? That's always the case. Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, thank you so much for just inputting. Yeah. Because I'm seeing some of the things that were commented, in the Menti. Yeah. Obviously, it's not exhaustive, and I just want to thank you for that. Again, right? I mean, guys. I just want to appreciate each and every one of you again, because as you are interacting and just helping me to do this surveys and putting your thoughts into this, right? Is helpful. So those of you who want, because that the Mentimeter, what you call it, note taking, right? It's going to be up there for at least another day or so. So you guys got the code and all. So if you want to continue to input and just help me out with just giving ideas and all, so and also for the benefit of the rest, if we are able to get it out to you guys in one way or another, I think that would be really helpful. And so I know some of you are talking about maybe the reasons, because I'm looking at just reviewing some of the questions that you have. I think a lot of you are talking about struggles with young people and with youth who don't think it's a problem. How would they define pornography and things like that? And what if the fuel or the involvement in pornography has got nothing to do with any of the things that we are talking about, the 6R that we're talking about. So regardless of which, if you kind of just look back at the issue as a big picture, right? I think you can trace back to this 6 nature, to this 6 reason. That rightfully so, a desire, a need of every human being, but yet at the same time can actually be turned into an idol. And so what I want you to do is because these are quite the content is already there. I want to just leave it with you again. As I said, I'm going to give you the notes at the end which will highlight all of this. But I thought it was interesting just from the perspective of Tim Chester, right? When he was talking about this 6 motivation and the battle plan that he suggests to put in place is again really going back to having faith in God. And it's not just about when we tell people, right, hey, just believe, you have a problem, you won't have a problem with it, or just believe, that you can be healed of this. It's not just believe, okay? Again, I'm not going to go into the details of this, but I want to give you his final thoughts on this, right? It's not about, our faith is never, yes, it's belief, but it's never just belief. And so the idea that he gave, right, again, from looking at it in perspective of the biblical truth, to counter the lies of pornography. Okay, you can see the trigger there, right? When it comes to respect, you can see the trigger there when it comes to relationship, the trigger there when it comes to refuge, the trigger that when it comes to reward, or when it comes to revenge or redemption. So all this, there are triggers to it, right? The biblical truth of this is to look at God as a whole again. As I told you again, right? I'm going to share this with you later. To go back to the biblical truth, while biblical truth is important for us to have a framework, but the other thing is important is to realize to let people know, right, that our faith, right, it's not just about just belief approach. Okay, what the term that he used, right, to just going back to biblical truth again, right, is that we need to fight the fight of faith. Okay, it's not just belief, it's to fight to believe. All right, faith in Jesus, it says here, it's not just a quick fix. It's not a case of just belief. We are called to fight. We are called to the fight of faith. Okay, so anybody who suggests, just pray and believe, and you can win over the false promises of porn to the promises of God. Anybody who suggests that it's going to be easy, it's not. And I can tell you, it's not. Okay, all right. And the just believe message is not enough. We need to fight, to believe. All right, and it's a daily fight. Okay, like all of us know. And some days you'll be wounded, some days you'll lose the battle, and then you pick yourself up again and continue to believe in God's grace and re-enter again into this living and to begin again. And I think that's the key. When it comes to countering the lies of pornography, right, it's a daily fight. But it's a fight nonetheless that God gives us the grace. Again, right, the scripture says there is no temptation that is beyond us. All these scriptures are great, but we need to know that God assists us in our daily fight, to keep the faith. Okay, so we may fall along the way, but remember that God gives us the grace to continue to begin again and to continue on our daily basis to fight. Okay, and so just to answer one quick question before I go to the last part of our segment on the solution, right, we are talking about, because this has to do with the earlier question by Dr. CL, right, as well as because it says some people, don't consider like Playboy magazine as porn because it is just pictures, as opposed to like real life videos and things like that now. So this is where I will address the, what constitute or define pornography the reason why I said pornography for me, right, the definition is any form of media that actually causes a person's sexual arousal. To me, that's pornography. So when I say this, yes, it is a very broad statement, simply because what is pornography to me may not be pornography for you. You all hear that? You all hear that, guys? Let me repeat that. What is porn to me may not be porn to you. So what's the problem here? The problem here is not about the material. The problem here is threshold. Okay, so meaning that for a certain person who is, who doesn't get aroused from seeing like a very, suggestive magazine, for example. Okay, to me that's not porn. Okay, but for another person, just looking at suggestive, models in an advertisement already causes arousal. Okay, so that material is porn to him. Okay, so do you see now why it is so difficult to come out with a list and say, okay, this is pornography, this is not. There will be no end, you see, because the threshold is different for people. All right, and right, when we want to help people, we always start with what? We don't start with the strongest in the midst. We start with the weakest, and that's a biblical approach. We don't look out for the strongest and say we create a standard of a lifestyle or a guideline for the strongest in our midst. No, we do not do that. We do it for the weakest or the people who is struggling the most. Okay, and so again, I hope this gives you why it is so difficult to just call this porn and that is not porn, because it really is a broad definition. But we need to look at it on an individual basis, because the threshold for what constitutes porn for individual is different. Okay. And so we must always set guidelines for the one that is struggling the weakest in our midst. Okay, so therefore I stand by my definition of pornography, that any form of, even music, when a person is listening to music, okay, he's already aroused. That is pornography to him. And where does he need to draw the line? He needs to draw the line where he is feeling arousal, and he needs to put away those things. Okay, and so again, I hope that gives you an idea, right? Again, it's difficult to do, but again, it is important for us to know the difference. That we cannot just put a list of what constitute porn and what does not constitute porn, because the threshold is different for individuals. And so coming back again to the heart of the issue. Okay, the motivation, not to look at the porn per se, but to look at what is the motivation. Why are they going into porn? There is a deeper reason, there's a deeper issue that they're struggling. Yes, it can be curiosity in the beginning, but to continue with that curiosity, right? Basically because they are replacing something that they don't want to deal with it right now. Okay, and so when it comes to God's restoration power, right? And I think one of the things I always share about, attending Josh McDowell's free summit, set free summit on when he launched it in Singapore, right? So he was the first plenary speaker. He went up to the stage. It's a 3-day event. He went up to the stage, and the first thing he says, you know what, guys? I just want to tell you that there is no solution to the pandemic of pornography. Then all of us like, what? No solution? Then why are we here? We got 3 more days to go. And the first thing he says, there's no solution. And the reason why he said that is because a lot of us want a systematic approach towards pornography. Give us a formula. Okay, tell us how to help our youth. Give us a formula, then we will do it. We will do the program, etc., etc., etc. But it doesn't work that way. Why? Because pornography, right? It is so deep entrenched into so many issues. Again, the brain is the issue of struggle with the brain, the neurological issue, the issue with the heart, the issue with how it's impacting the world these days. So there is no one solution, okay? But he says there are solutions, meaning that we have to approach pornography, in a systemic approach rather than a systematic approach. Okay, right? And this is where I'm going to come in. And again, the heart of God really is this, okay, to let all of us know, right, that there is no wound so deep as to be out of the reach of Christ's redeeming grace. And this is something that we need to know, that God still, has the power to restore, okay? And this is where we want to look at it, from a systemic approach, right, into how we want to solve the problem. And it says here again, the scripture, right, that, in his kindness, God has called us to share in his eternal glory, so that after you have suffered a little while, he will restore, support, and strengthen you, and he will place you on a firm foundation. And that's a promise that's given, to anybody who is struggling with pornography, that there can be a change. Okay. So again, don't be alarmed, but this is what Josh McDowell in his research suggests, right? A systemic approach. Can you count how many? It's so small, I can't even see. This is just the tip, in a way, really want to go deep. Now, when you see this, right, I know you can be like so overwhelmed. I say, Josh, you mean we have to go through all of this, And what I want you to know is that I believe as a Christian community, right, we are already doing a lot of this, we are already doing a lot of this approach to helping people, a focus on family, approach to helping people in family, in the church, helping people to live out their faith on a daily basis. These are basic things, part and parcel of what we are doing already in the church. But to let you know that the solution to porn, right, requires that concerted effort, to address this issue. Again, this is the QR code actually brings you to the PDF document, and you can read it. I mean, if you really want to look at this from the church leaders' perspective of how can we approach this in the right way, right? In a systemic approach, right? Go through the list and see some of the suggestions that's given in this research, right? And begin to see, okay, how can we set this safeguard in place in our church, in our community, all right, to really stamp out the problem of pornography, okay? Now, so with this one is something that you can read, a resource for you. But I want to begin with just, starting with self. Again, some of you are talking about youth. One of the programs that I do with young people, when it comes to the very specific topic of pornography, right, is a program called Control control, alternate, delete. Okay. So again, control, alternate, delete, for those of us who are older, you will know what it stands for, right? No, when you press control, I'm talking about a Microsoft user, not Apple. Apple is a different thing. Control, alternate, delete. When you press control, alternate, delete in the past, not now. Control, alternate, delete, basically what does it do for your computer? It reboots your computer. Okay, so what we're telling young people, right? You can actually restart when it comes to a problem with pornography. Okay, so control, alternate, delete stands for it is within your control. Okay, so you got to recognize those triggers. So going back to the 6th motivation, right? What are those triggers that actually, gets you want to watch porn? Okay, then after that is talking about reporting it. We talk about accountability being one of the systemic approach towards the issue as well. Then of course, the alternative, again, sometimes, right, what I tell young people, right, again, right, this one is a very simple approach to, of course, some of you say, how do we help young people who don't believe porn is a problem? Well, bring the awareness. Help them to see what porn does to the brain, what porn does to the heart, and what porn does to society as a whole. Bring awareness, right? I tell you, can actually make a big difference already. Then, of course, the next step is to helping them find solution. Then, of course, I tell young people, right, who are struggling with it, it's like, when we talk about pornography and says, okay, don't think about porn, don't think about porn, don't think about porn, right? It's actually not a very good approach, because I give you an example, okay? I tell all of you, okay, don't think about a pink elephant, okay? You guys don't think about the pink elephant, okay? Don't think about the pink elephant who is riding a bicycle. Okay, please don't think about the pink elephant riding a bicycle, okay? Okay, please don't think about the pink elephant riding a bicycle holding an umbrella with its trunk. Please, don't think about the pink elephant riding a bicycle holding an umbrella with its trunk. What are you guys thinking about? A pink elephant riding a bicycle holding an umbrella, right? And so sometimes it's counterproductive, right? To tell people, don't think about it, don't think about it. And actually, it is more productive to ask them to replace, to look for alternative, healthy alternative, to replace those times, right, with positive habits. Like sports, like, hanging out with friends, like, going on a Zoom call, to celebrate a person's birthday party in this pandemic where we cannot get connected. So many things that we can do to replace. When you replace, right, again, right, I don't want to go back to the slide again, looking at the brain analogy, right? What's the amazing thing about the brain analogy of how our brain is neuroplasticity, right, in nature? Because of its neuroplasticityness, what will happen is that when we replace our lives with positive alternative, that gap that was left by pornography, before long, right, it will also begin to close up, just like a plasticine. When you reshape it, right, the gap that is filled normally by pornography and masturbation, etc., is going to be covered up as well. Why? Because you are now replacing your brain with new neural pathways, healthy alternative, finding pleasure with friends. There's the brain again, right? They say it's the lose it when out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. When you lessen your viewing of pornography, lessen your connection with pornography, soon the gap will fill up. Okay, because again, it doesn't fill up on its own. You have to replace it with healthy alternative, create new neural pathways in the brain, so that, okay, the longing and the craving for pornography will have lesser and lesser and lesser of its hold. Okay, so this is where we sometimes don't realize, right? The brain analogy comes in. Okay, then of course reinforce safeguards, so that you don't go back to then of course delete unhealthy behavior, run away from an unhealthy situation, remove those things that traps you. Okay, okay, I got no time to read this, but I can come back to the chat. I think some of you are smiling at the chat. Okay, but anyway, so again, how can a young man keep, they're talking about, encouraging Christian youth, right? Okay, by how can a young person stay on the path of purity? Basically by living according to the word, right? I mean, if you really don't have time to go in depth into the studying this portion of scripture, right? So it starts with obeying, right? It starts with living according to God's word, and if you look at verse 10 to verse 15 onwards, right? It talks about, don't wander away from the commandments, hide God's word in your heart, praise, worship God, recite aloud, rejoice in God's law, study his word, reflect on his way. All these words, right, are important. It's not just about obedience. It's about a lifestyle, okay? Not letting your mind wander away from the word of God, hiding it in your heart. Worship is a very important element, reciting aloud God's word, rejoicing in the Lord. Okay, so all these are very helpful ways, So again, not pointing to just memorizing words, not thinking about, porn, but really to change a lifestyle. Okay, and so this is so moving from self to family. Okay, and I think this is where for those of us who have family members, right, we need to start young. Okay, with our children, with our family. Okay, it says here, right, by Frederick Douglass, it says it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. Okay, so the access to pornography is getting younger and younger. The exposure to pornography is getting younger and younger. And the statement here is this, a very important one. Okay, it is not a matter of if our children are going to be exposed to porn. The question is when our children are exposed to porn. It's no longer an if question. It is a when question. So for us as leaders, as parents, as people who work with children and young people, right, we got to ask ourselves the question, when our children are exposed to porn, what are they going to do about it? Okay, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. So how do we prepare our children when they are exposed to porn, not if they are exposed to porn? It's a when question, okay? And so it's important for us to start with the family. And of course, again, there's so many things, solution. And by the way, even for a person, who talks about the subject on a regular basis, my family is not shielded, from the exposure to porn. My two girls are not shielded, okay? And I don't want to take for granted just because I'm talking about it, all the time, not only to you guys, but also to my children, that they are protected. I need to be very intentional in my role, and it says, the solution when it comes to the family involve parents, especially the dads, and I know the question you're going to ask, what about single moms, or single dads, how do you play the role? That's where again, right, we talk about the kampong spirit, where it takes a village to raise a child. Like, always remember that, even if you're a single parent, you need a village to raise your child. Okay, and so get them involved in a safe environment with adults who care and love for them. Bring those people into the lives of your children, as a single parent. Okay, loving, safe environment, biblical-based faith conviction. Okay, positive biblical view. We need to look at sex. Because pornography is what? Pornography is the counterfeit, right? Counterfeit to what? Counterfeit to what sex is. So we must bring back and help our children and not frown whenever your child comes to you and say, Papa, Mommy, I heard the word sex. What is it? Oh, go ask your mommy. Go ask your youth pastor. Don't miss the teachable moments, with your children. If you find it difficult, to talk about it, get equipped. There's so many great resources out there. Okay. All right. Then involved in an active growing church. Important again, right? Because how do we fight porn? Build community. How do we fight the private struggle of pornography? Bring it to public. Bring community together, community living together, right? And don't go at it alone, as a family, as a single parent, or as an individual. We need the kampong spirit in this. Okay. All right. Then of course, this one again, a resource to help you guys. So when it comes to helping children, right? So because I have always felt that there was a lacking. How do we talk about porn with kids, for example, right? And so this is a psychologist, a counselor rather, who is a constant contributor in terms of article it just slipped my mind. Okay, but anyway, she's Covenant Eyes. Sorry, Covenant Eyes is basically the website that deals a lot with as to help you guys with filters, with resources to help build a strong safeguard for your family. And so she has this to say, right? She says, teaching children sexual boundaries includes understanding what pornography is and why it's harmful. Kids don't know the difference between good pictures and bad picture are less likely to stay away from porn or tell you if they've been exposed. Now, you need to imagine, right? This is the mind of a child, right? The first time they're exposed to pornography, they have no sense. They don't even know it's pornography. They have no sense of what to make out of it. The only thing they know, right, is that they are attracted to it or they are repulsed by it, whatever feeling. There's all this, the feeling that they're suddenly experiencing, right, which they have no understanding or no words to put into those feelings, no vocabulary to express those feelings. Now, if we don't help our little children, right, to tell the difference between good picture and bad picture, what's going to happen is that they are less likely to tell anybody about it. And especially for those children who are attracted, repulsed by it, then they just go away. But those children who are attracted by it, right, they will take a second look. They will look more and more and more. Then after that, they become entrenched in it. Now, the helpful, okay, obviously there are many resources, but the really helpful resources that I've come across when helping children, right, is this whole concept of good picture, bad picture. It's actually a resources that's made for young children as young as 3 to 5, then to the slightly older one, which is 5 onwards, with good picture, bad picture junior, as well as good picture, bad picture for the older kids. So Sunil said, no, can we say that it's not pornography, but it's lust of the eyes? Okay, now if you're talking to children, right? I think children have no concept of what lust of the eyes means. Okay, so we have to use words that they understand. So when it comes to kids, right, this is where it's important to just explain what good picture, bad picture is. Okay, so it's actually like an animated picture book that reads and help the children to differentiate. Okay, it's not showing porn, by the way. It's just to differentiate what is good picture by explanation. Then after that, it gives a strategy for children. It's called the can-do strategy. When you see bad picture, what can you do? Okay, so close your eyes, avoid, tell somebody about it. So it's basically a very simple strategy to help children to get out of it and to tell people about it, so that they will experience. Again, right, I share this resource with you because I think it's important. Now, if you go to the website, right, so the website, I cannot copy it, so you got to kind of just take this now. I wanted to copy to you in the chat, but it's protectyoungminds.org. If you sign on as a subscriber to their website, right, from time to time, they will just continue to feed you resources in your email about how to strategize in helping protect young children from the lure of pornography. Okay, right. So this is basically this is it. Again, there's some comical things happening at the chat. Okay, I have no time to look into it. Okay, just anyway, I hope you guys are feeding good stuff at the chat. Okay. Anyway, then it's the church. How do we approach this as a church, right? And it says here, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil, right? For example, pornography, is when good men, parents, pastors, or leaders to actually do nothing. And I think, going back again, right? I think not being equipped should not be an excuse why we're not addressing the issue. Okay. Basically, because it's a taboo, shouldn't be stopping us from addressing the issue. Maybe some of us are also struggling. I think, if I'm not mistaken, there are some questions that talks about what if parents are also struggling. Okay, that's not an excuse. Again, right? If you are struggling, right, I want you to think about basically the future of our children and how that's going to impact them. And if that's not cause for us to turn from our ways, right, I don't know what else will be. Imagine, I mean, we are not going to live with the consequences as much as our children are going to live with the consequences. The violence against women, how frivolously young men are talking about rape these days, is entrenched with the problem with pornography. Our children, our young people are inheriting the impact of pornography. And if we don't do anything about it, then evil will triumph. Okay? And so this is basically, okay, going back again, as I mentioned to you again, reclaiming what sex is from the perspective of God. There is all these things. Sex is pleasurable, it is intimate, it's powerful, it's bonding, it creates new life. Sex is all these great things and much more that God promises. And pornography is just an illusion of what sex can be in the context of a
healthy marriage. Okay? Sex is good, and we need to continue to go with that message. Don't shy away from talking about sex with your children. Okay? We need to continue this message from the church. Okay? Top down, to talk about the beauty, you know, of sex, and the greatness of sex, the sacredness of sex, and the, you know, just basically the mystery of sex, you know, in the context, you know, of marriage. Okay. Okay, I'll address that question a little bit while afterwards. Okay. Okay, so God's design, right? Again, I don't want to go into it very much, but again, right? God has blessings, you know, when people follow His promise, and when people differ, you know, from God's design, you know, for sex, then that's where we have to face the consequences. Okay, and this is the reality. There's no two ways about it. And I thought it was really interesting that we're talking about the beauty of sex in its context of marriage, right? And this is Pastor Stephen Futrick from the US, and the link is there. You can click on it in the notes that I give you later to watch it's like a 15 minutes video. I mean, obviously he goes in a very comical, very dramatic way of explaining this point. He says that, you know, passion is pure, but it needs the parameter if it's to serve its purpose. So when you talk about sex, right? Why it needs the parameter of experiencing sex in the context of marriage, simply because there is a purpose to fulfill, okay? And sexual desire, you know, if I can summarize what he says, is basically this, okay? Sexual desire is like fire, okay? So if I ask you the question, right, is fire good or bad? What would you say, okay? Can you use your emojis, your reaction emojis? Is fire good or bad? Give me a thumbs up or a X. Okay, fire is good, right? Okay, I can see one thumbs up. I think some of you are struggling maybe because you said fire can be good, and both good and bad, right? Right? It's true. Fire is good, but fire can be really bad as well, because fire can also destroy, right? So sexual desire is like a fire. Okay, without the context of marriage, okay, without the context of marriage, it cannot what? It cannot grow. It cannot fulfill its purpose as God intended it to be, right? So sexual desire is like fire, but it can only burn well in the fireplace of marriage. So I always use fireplace, but nowadays I've changed. I use a barbecue pit. So I tell young people, because you're Asian, unless you're from Mongolia, okay, then you understand what the warmth of fire brings you, okay? But in our Asian context, you're like, fireplace, barbecue, okay. When fire is in barbecue, right? What does it give you? It gives you delicious food, right? That is cooked well, and, you know, fragrance, aroma, etc. But it has to be in that boundary of a fireplace. Okay, so same thing with sex. And I think when we help our young people, help our congregation understand this, you know, this is where we bring into proper perspective again, right? Okay, then again, we talk about then how do we go out in the community? And I think when we begin to look at the problem of pornography and the approach to it of helping people, right, who are struggling with it in a way that is gracious, as how Jesus would do it, never from a condemning point of view, you know, never from a point of view that, you know, of unhealthy righteousness as it is, you know, and for us to basically realize that, right, and that's where we can be a voice for the community, because there is really a lot of studies that are done right now that is on our side, you know, when it comes to the problem of pornography. And I think we can speak truth into society, into community, that maybe the experts can't do, okay? Because we can speak about the real solution, which is, you know, a complete, you know, relationship in the person of Jesus Christ, who brings about the true transformation, who brings about fulfillment, right? That fills in the gap, okay? To fills in the gap that leaves room where pornography can actually take a stronghold, okay? And I think when we do that, right, then we can approach this, you know, again, with much love and grace. We can be the voice like we used to be, maybe not in a judgmental manner, but in a voice nonetheless, to help the community, the society at large, knows that there is a better way. Okay, so we won't do this, but again, coming back to the church, right? How do we respond? You know, again, from coming back to my original verse, right, from Colossians, I think as a church, right, we need to, as individual, starting with our individual first, and as a church, we need to repent, I think, first and foremost, of our own immorality. It may not be pornography, but it may be, you know, maybe just the judgmental attitude, just the brushing aside attitude. Okay, and we need to repent of that, because if we don't, you know, then the doors of the church, the doors, you know, and windows of our safe community will always remain shut. And more young people are abandoning it simply because they cannot find, you know, a safe place. And the church should be the safe place, right? And again, to regain, as I mentioned earlier, regain the moral authority by repentance and obedience, and re-establishing, you know, honesty, vulnerability, you know, as well as accountability in within the church as well. How does that look like? You know, I don't have time to go and probably need another session for this, but what I can tell you, so today is really the awareness. Okay, how do we go back? So the discussion I wanted you to have earlier was, how do we go back again to the heart of making the church or our community, whichever community you represent, a safe space for people who are struggling, maybe not just with porn, but who are struggling in relationships, struggling with, you know, same-sex attraction. How do we make the church, a community, a safe place where they know that they can come and find true acceptance, not of their sinful lifestyle, but acceptance of who they are as an individual, as an image bearer of the Most High God. Okay, and so this is basically the point. And again, no time to go through this. This is basically pointing back to our need, you know, as a church, because this is Zechariah talking about the 4 visions. Those of you who are familiar with this, talking about the 4 visions that was prophesied. And the third vision is basically on focus on Israel. The last vision is basically on our internal need for cleansing. And when there is cleansing and restoration, you know, what happens is that we are reinstated again to the priestly office that's called each and every one of us to bear. You know, the priestly office that God has called us to bear. And he says, I'm going to put on new clothes on you, and you will be my witness. You're going to be, you know, my voice, you know, not just for the church, but for the society at large. Okay. And again, you know, the journey, we need to fight for our faith, fight the good fight of faith. And the journey of the saints begins with what? Knowing that it is long, right? It's never, there's no shortcut. Okay, it's marked with successes and failures, especially with a person struggling with pornography. Okay, the point is not how many times you fall down. Do you know that? The point is whether you are going to pick yourself up and keep changing your life. I know there's a question here, right, that talks about, you know, promise of stopping to watch porn. Then after 3 weeks, you're back again, you know, and feel so guilty. And so how do you help teenagers, you know, to find proper release from his sexual urges? Okay, so again, right, I want to point back again, right, the key thing is not release from sexual urges. Do all of us have sexual urges? Obviously. Okay, all of us do. Okay, now let me tell you, okay, if I can remember, you know, obviously I told you about my first exposure to pornography as a young adult. Okay, what helped me the most, right, if I remember, okay, obviously I remember, and obviously because it is so still so fresh in my mind, right, that I feel that that's probably one of the greatest release for me, you know, from what pornography could have done to my life. Okay, and the release was basically community living. I was so isolated, right? You know what's the thing that happened to me? There was a group of guys, 2 guys in particular, brothers who have known, you know, through youth ministry, because of our combined camps together. I was from Malacca, they were from KL. They came almost every week and says, Josh, let's do this, let's do that. You know, they brought me to church. They brought me to do crazy stuff. You know, we go out late at night and just have mama session. That's another word for accountability group. You know, and we did all these things. You know, and after that, you know, we started serving. You know, and the service that I did, you know, just and by doing it together with these guys, right, was so much more attractive than porn. And I tell you, it's not about, okay, I again, right, going back to, I don't want to think about, don't want to think about porn, don't want to think about porn. Sometimes it's counterproductive. Again, focus on other things. And service, I tell you, is a really, really big help. When you are serving other people, you become less consuming in your own life, in your own self-pity, in the things that you're going through. Not that they're not important. Your struggles are important. But when you begin to serve other people, right, the wounded healer gets healed as well. Okay, the wounded, you know, the person who is wounded, you know, while providing to heal other people's wound, also get healed in the process. Okay, and I'm going to talk about the spouse later. Okay, so the journey is lonely, but you don't need to go this alone. And again, right, so now this one ties in very well with Mickey's question on the spouse who don't think it's nothing wrong, right? Now, I think one of the key issue, right, so the thing that you have here right now is basically the link that you have here. It says, right, it's actually on marriage. Okay, it says, want to be better husband, hang out with good friends. And so basically what this is saying, right, is that when you are always hanging out with people who are not speaking into your life, okay, who are not, you know, basically good role model husbands, just I'm talking from the man perspective, right? Obviously, you know, you are not going to grow in that area, okay? If you want to grow in any area, right, you need to hang out with the right people. And I think that's key. Okay, so obviously, you know, people who don't see this as a problem, who are struggling with this, you know, requires more help, which I will point you to afterwards. We should require deeper. Now, all this I'm saying, right, by no means, please don't think that is a quick fix. All this is just a start. Okay, it requires, you know, some of those who are so entrenched in addiction requires long-term intervention. Right? It's no way just hanging out with friends, finding accountability group is going to solve the problem. But it's really a long-term solution. And we need to be patient as leaders, as people who are concerned with this issue. We need to be patient with our young people who keeps falling down and coming out, falling down. We need to be patient with them, to walk through with them, to let them know we are here for them. Okay, and so the journey, right? I mean, again, this one is my timer. Bob Carlyle's song, "We Fall Down," basically talks about, you know, talks about how people are always admiring the saints. You know, people on the outside, the individuals here, looking at the pastors and the church leaders and think that, you know, they've gotten everything together, right? But, you know, when the monk saw this guy who was basically narrating this story, right? When finally meets a monk in a monastery and says, hey, how do you guys do it? And so the monk basically said, well, we are people who fall down and we get up, who fall down and we get up. And the saints are just people, are just the sinners who fall down and get up. Okay. And I hope this is an encouragement to you that it is a long journey. Let's come together with the kampong spirit and help one another to journey to, and we have this, we already have this in place. We have this community, we have this place, okay, where we can actually build on it to help people who are struggling. Okay. So I know there's many questions right now, and I hope to curate this and maybe, you know, give you all some pointer to some of these questions. Okay, please don't feel bad that I'm not addressing some of these questions, because they are, after all, a lot. And what's going to happen is I'm going to curate these questions and try to point you to some articles or some, you know, reading that's going to help for you guys to process it. Okay, so just give me some time to do that. All right. Again, my notes are here. Okay, for you all to link it. So yeah. So if you can just take a, yeah, I don't know how to describe. I can't copy for you guys, but maybe you just take a QR code and someone in the list,
take a picture of
so
this
that
scope.
you can actually just help you to get the notes that are. So all the things I presented to you today, okay, will be in a PDF document here, and all the link that you see in the PDF document brings you to the resources that is quoted as well. Okay, so this is the notes. Let me come back to this after, for those of us who need some time. I'm going to come back to this note again when Pastor Thomas makes the announcement. But again, resources, again, these are all in the notes, so that you can just click on it and go to the resources that I pointed out to. So all the things that I mentioned, the research and the citation that I gave, they're all linked to various resources, which you can read more about it. No Apologies is also another program. So that's why I say, right, we need to start right when it comes to the understanding of sexuality. So Focus on the Family Malaysia is having a workshop for young people that deals, very specifically in the area of sexuality, of life, love, and sex. Then, of course, to talking about how do we build that strong foundation. We're not talking so much about pornography, because pornography is actually another workshop that we do, but just on setting the foundation right. So there is an upcoming workshop that's happening in June. It's open to all. So if you want to get your young people to attend this, please do so. So that they can help build a strong foundation of their idea of sexuality, because I think that's needed. Because if you don't bring this strong foundation, then pornography will continue to be, something that's going to be a stronghold. Okay, so this is it. Again, the details are in the notes. Then the other thing I want to point you towards, okay, is basically the counseling service. As I mentioned again, there's just so many. I wish I had more time to deal with some of the questions that you have, but there are a lot of issues, right, that requires, like, spouses, who don't think porn is a problem, issues in marriage, and etc. Right, young people so addicted to it that they cannot find an avenue out. So all these things, right, requires long term, and I want you to basically know that Focus on the Family do have counselors who can assist in this area. So go to our website. You can see how you can get help in terms of counseling need. The last person that I want to point you to is, I just had a conversation with Patrick Ching, who is basically the president of the National Association of Christian Counselors in Malaysia. And we basically spoke a little bit, because he heard that I was going to do this course, and he specialized, and it just so happened, incidentally, God brought us together. Patrick Ching is basically used to be a board member at Focus on the Family, and we are old friends, and just got connected again as as recent as yesterday, and we were just talking about this issue. And so he is actually coming out with training for counselors, pastoral, and lay leaders to understand and to help individuals with sex and porn addictions. That's how specific it is. Okay, I think the dates and all is not out yet, because he's actually working on some accreditation with the Asia Pacific accreditation here in Singapore together, and so they're trying to get some of these details worked out. So if you are interested, please contact Patrick. I may even be attending this, because I think this is really important. I think there needs to be a deeper understanding of how we can just really assist people struggling with this issue. All right, so thank you so much, Pastor Thomas. Sorry for just taking out your time. I know I'm going like a bullet train, but I hope that it has been beneficial for you guys. And yeah, just God bless one and all. And we hope that we can meet up again in some other form and manner. Right, back to you, Pastor Thomas. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much, Joshua, for all that you have been able to share with us today. And thank you also for sharing with us your notes. And I guess you have taken a picture of the QR code, and you can get the notes from there. And it may be possible that we might be able to put the recording today in our Malaysia Baptist Theological Seminary YouTube channel. I hope that can be done. And you can look for more information from Malaysia Baptist Theological Seminary in our website. And if you're interested in some of our courses, there is a variety of courses that you can take. And then the Pastoral Renewal and Research Center of the seminary is a ministry for pastors and Christian workers, especially if you have some issues, you have some problems, or you need a rest. All right, you can actually come, and we have people who can walk with you. All right, yeah, I believe that all of us has